Welcome into the PHNX Sun Devil Show, brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, drop a like wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Anthony Totri, joined by Shane Diefenbach. Shane, we're here because of breaking news out of Tempe. Cronkite News is reporting that longtime ASU women's basketball coach Charli Turner Thorne is expected to step down after 2+ decades at ASU.
Yeah, step down and retire, as they said. So that kind of gives the Sun Devils a little bit. It's a little better than just stepping down. 25 years here,
it's a long time, man.
14 NCAA tournament appearances. She had 6 consecutive before they missed the last 2. Like, it stinks, but I mean, I can understand why at this time after a 12-win season and what happened the year before. It sucks for. I do wish that she would have stayed another year for the players that are coming back. Like Taya Hansen said she was going to be back. So, yeah, it's just unfortunate.
There's never really, it feels like there is a good time to step down when you win a national championship. But I feel like in this scenario, she sees that the program is going through a little bit of a rebuild almost. You mentioned the last 2 seasons. Obviously, the Sun Devils losing yesterday in Vegas. Not a great game from the Sun Devils against Oregon State. And we talked a little bit about it before we went live of just like, it almost sucks for the players because you have that disappointing loss yesterday. And then now today, your head coach is expected to step down and, like you said, retire. Like, do you almost, I don't think they're taking it like personal, like Charli stepping down, but do you almost feel like that was like the last straw, maybe? Like she can see, like, this team's still a way away.
I just think that she kind of had this idea already. As we said, it's so hard to picture it because, like you've talked to her many times. Like she's just so bright and energetic, and you wouldn't think that she's been doing this at this program for 25 years. And it's hard to even think about that. So it feels like you're being blindsided, but then when you look at the numbers, you're like, damn. Yeah. Since '96, her coaching career at ASU is as old as I am.
Yeah.
Older.
That's crazy, man. I mean, I talked to her on Monday, and I just didn't get the sense that she was ready to hang it up. Like she was so focused in, obviously, on the tourney and everything that was set to transpire over the next couple of days. But the way that she spoke in regards to where this team is, the excitement of getting people back next season, or just, like the disappointment that they've been through a lot these last 2 years. She did bring up COVID and how tough that's been on not just her, but the program in general.
The injuries this year and last year, it's just...
I almost feel like that's got to play a part in it too, of like, you go through these such difficult seasons, right, with COVID and everything that's changed, cancellations, etc. Like that's got to put a wear on a coach that's been doing this as long as her too.
Oh yeah, I mean, coaching a Division I basketball program is not an easy task, and when you're doing it for so long, the mental wear that wears on you essentially is just like and then going through what they went through the last couple years. But going back to that game yesterday, looking at those last 5 minutes of the game in hindsight, now that we know that she's retiring or expected to, it kind of like there's no other way a CTT team would go out like that. Like they could have multiple times throughout the game could have just hung it up, and they never ever did.
It's a tough situation. And again, if you're just tuning in, we're live because the breaking news out of Tempe that ASU women's basketball coach Charli Turner Thorne is expected to step down from her position and retire, at least within the next couple of hours. ASU set to have a press conference during that time. The news broke by Cronkite News. It's a weird situation because obviously there's been a lot of turnover in regards to ASU athletics in revenue sports, right? Obviously, Bobby's been here a minute, but you look at Herm and in other positions, obviously the baseball team, but like I feel like the one
constant was Charli.
Yeah. She's been the cornerstone of ASU athletics. Like she's synonymous with ASU sports.
For sure.
So like where does this team go now? Like we talked about it at the end of the game yesterday. Like it was going to be something on their mind, right? Like this was a little bit of a disappointing season. They'd been through a lot. Okay, it's time for this team to step up and move forward. Now they've just lost their head coach.
Yep.
So like,
and not just a head coach, like a staple.
Again, yeah. The one person synonymous with ASU athletics. Where does this team go now?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some transfers to get somewhere for their last year. I mean, they love the program, but Charli is the program.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if you see some transfers, but I also wouldn't be shocked if people come back. I mean, I'm sure Charli is such a bright person that I'm sure she has been thinking about this, not just this year, but the last couple of years, even when they were still making the tournament, when she was on that run.
Yeah.
And I feel like she definitely has the replacement. Obviously not going to speculate, but probably somebody close with her on her staff, just to keep the, same vibe that she's brought to Arizona State for the last 25 years. But you can't really predict where a program is going to go when somebody like Charli retires. It's Coach K-esque almost, just always been at this school, built a culture at this school, is the program, as we said. So I don't know if you can even begin to imagine what the program would look like without her.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that may get lost is we talk about ASU athletics and the lack of culture in so many different sports here. But if there was one team that had developed a culture over the last 2 decades, it's got to be 100%. Charli's team.
100%.
Like, even though they weren't playing well going into the tournament, like, we all sat here with expectations of, like, if there is anybody that is going to get this team right, if there's an ASU basketball team or an ASU team in general that can finish the regular season off not great, but be ready come tournament time, it's a Charli Turner Thorne coach team, because she's been here, like you said, 2+ decades, and she's instilled such a great culture within the program. Obviously, we hope that stays. In regards to what's next, and I want to say honoring Charli Turner Thorne. I know it's not a big ASU thing to build statues outside of like Pat Tillman. But like, hear me out. Coming from South Bend in Indiana, where there's statues across campus, and they had just announced a statue for a long time Notre Dame women's basketball coach Muffet McGraw. Like, if there is an ASU coach that is deserving hands down to be commemorated at ASU far more than just having their name in a rafter, it is Charli Turner Thorne.
100%.
And if Ray Anderson wants to, and it's something that, like, you don't need to wait this out. Like, if Ray knows in this press conference today is to confirm she's done, she's retiring, whatever, like, if Ray Anderson wants to show that he is about ASU athletics, that he is about this, like, go today and be like, we want to make we want to create a statue somewhere across Tempe, somewhere on ASU's campus to commemorate one of, if not the, most synonymous coach with ASU athletics.
Absolutely. Looking at some of these stats over her years are just ridiculous. And excuse me, it should have been 7 NCAA tournament appearances because of the cancellation. But it was always either a turnaround or consistent build up and success over the years with her. She started here 9-19, then 10-17, 12-15, 14-15, and then they didn't have a losing season again until 2012, and then right after that they got back into the tournament and started that what should be 7 straight tournament appearances. It just goes back to the culture, man. It's just, she means so much to not only the program but also everyone that's been in the program, the school. It is just such a big loss, and it's strange to really think about life after CTT at Arizona State.
It really is. You mentioned the record book, and I got to pull it up right now. Just, it's laughable to look at her numbers compared to every other basketball coach, women's basketball coach that's been at ASU. Like, overall record of 464 and 268. Like, just the amount of games that she's coached. The next one on here is 134 and 92, and that's back in the 80s. Like, that's absurd to be coaching that long.
You just don't find coaches like this in any sport often.
No.
You just don't.
Like, she is a special coach. ASU is going to hands down miss her. Mm-hmm. But, like, I'm happy that she's going out on her own terms.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen with the athletic department, and like there's a lot of heat coming for Ray. And somebody had brought this up of like, you know, okay, let's say Ray does get canned sometime in the next year or two. There's no telling how, like, if the new AD wants to come in and clean house and bring in new people.
Yeah.
So like, I think it makes sense for her to go out when she is, just with the instability in the ASU athletic program in general. But it's going to be weird. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
What do you think? I mean, she's obviously going to take some time to herself, but if she does go into another field, whether it be, you know, I think maybe some nice motivational speaking would be great on her free time. What do you think she does next?
So when I talked to her on Monday, she had brought up that ASU has life coaches for their student athletes. As somebody that has proven success over such a long period of time, somebody that has worked in the development of young minds and like trying to get them to their peak, I think it would be a fascinating transition for her to take some time and then move into almost like a life coach or mentor type role. I
talked to her earlier in the year, and multiple times I did ask questions about, you know, how is this chemistry always so tight? Because when I got into the practice with like 30 minutes to go, there were smiles on every single player's face, and they just all are family. And she always preached like, it's the same off the court as it is on the court. They don't just like playing with each other; they like being around each other.
100%.
And that's what Charli is, and that's what she does. And she also loves to mention that it's not just about basketball. Like, these girls are coming into the program, and I want to make them better human beings.
Yeah.
And she does that, and she's just a phenomenal person, more than anything else.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing to find, like you said.
So hard.
In sports, it just doesn't really happen anymore. But that's the big news of the day in Tempe. ASU women's basketball coach Charli Turner Thorne expected to step down from her position as the ASU women's basketball coach and retire after 25 seasons in that role. The news broke by Cronkite News earlier today. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll be live for an ASU men's basketball postgame following their contest against Cal tonight.